You're living off me right now, aren't you? If you're a housewife, manage on $200 a month. Sean always yells at me, looking down on me as a stay-at-home wife. Sean is stingy with money and doesn't tolerate any shortcuts in housework. Even if I fall ill, he doesn't show any concern. Instead, he sometimes leaves the house, staying at a hotel until the chores are done, yelling at me not to infect him. When I argue that managing on $200 is impossible, he doesn't listen. You can fetch water from the river, can't you? And don't you dare turn on the electricity until I get home. You're a housewife, you should be able to save money. He even says outrageous things with a smirk. His mindset is so outdated. Understood. I'll keep the food budget to $200 a month and won't waste any money. I had completely lost trust and affection for Sean and decided to follow his manage on $200 a month demand to the letter. First, I reduced waste thoroughly. No matter how much Sean complained, I kept meals simple to save on groceries. I also lived without turning on the lights as much as possible, as Sean demanded. Then, one day, Sean missed a step in the dark staircase and fell down, breaking his leg and ending up hospitalized for a while. By the way, you had a call on your cell earlier. My name is Kelly. I'm a 35-year-old housewife. My husband, Sean, is the same age and works for a company. Before we got married, Sean was very meticulous with money, and I thought we'd build a good home together. Sean and I reconnected at our middle school reunion when we were 30. We had only exchanged greetings in middle school and went to different high schools, so our conversation was awkward at first. However, as we talked more, we bonded over shared interests and exchanged contact info. Soon after, we started dating. Sean was always the frugal type during our dating days. We're big movie buffs, and we'd often go see new releases together. Sean insisted on splitting not only the movie tickets but also the snacks and drinks during the movie. If the bill was an odd number, we'd play rock paper scissors to decide who'd pay the extra penny. While I sometimes found his thriftiness a bit much, I didn't mind because I also didn't like one-sided treating. Sean's frugality extended beyond just splitting bills. It showed in everyday shopping and even in the gifts he gave me. One day, Sean told me he had bought a new computer. When I saw it, I was puzzled. Hey Sean, isn't this computer really old? You should have bought a newer one. He replied proudly, Kelly, you just don't get it. It's great because it's old. It doesn't have to be new, and it's cheaper. Sean excitedly explained how he negotiated a discount with the salesperson, used his saved-up points, and paid with the credit card that had the highest cashback rate. Honestly, I thought, is it necessary to go that far? But I also collect points and appreciate getting things cheaper, so I didn't say anything. However, Sean even tried to save on gifts for me. On our one-year anniversary, we exchanged presents. Sean gave me a pearl necklace. Sean, thank you. It's really lovely. Right? I searched for the cheapest store. What? As I expressed my happiness, Sean continued bragging, unaware of my strained expression. Everything was expensive everywhere. I thought a thrift store would be too much, though. Then I found it online for about $10 cheaper than the store. I got points on my card and a coupon, so I decided right away. Oh, really? I was honestly a bit annoyed. I had bought Sean a watch that suited him without worrying about the price for our special occasion. But Sean did choose it with me in mind. So, I held back my complaints. I didn't think Sean was perfect, but it's better than being a spendthrift. Most importantly, I loved Sean's kindness. He enjoyed my home-cooked meals and took me for drives on weekends. He made it clear he valued our time together. That's why I married Sean 2 years after we started dating. However, I gradually started to feel uncomfortable with Sean as my husband. Initially, I continued working after our marriage, but even when Sean got home first, I was the one who cooked. Meanwhile, Sean would just watch TV or play with his phone. Sorry, could you bring in the laundry? Huh, you want me to do it? Yeah, can you please? Ugh. Fine. Sean did it when I asked, even though I couldn't stop cooking dinner. He looked really annoyed. To save more money, I made lunches for both of us. Even if I came home late from work, we never ate out. It seems Sean thinks housework is a wife's job. After seeing his annoyed face once, I started feeling awkward about asking for help, so I tried to do all the housework alone. Despite my frustrations with Sean, he was still kind in other ways. When I took a sick day from work, he was very concerned. Take it easy today. I'll eat out tonight. Okay, sorry about this. When you feel better, let's go see a movie again. I was so touched by his thoughtfulness that I decided to cook all his favorite meals once I recovered. But after that day, I started getting sick more often. I woke up early to make lunches and continued working as usual. When I got home, I'd do the chores I couldn't finish in the morning. I never got a break, and the fatigue kept piling up. One day, Sean spoke to me seriously. Kelly, why don't you quit your job? Why all of a sudden? I've been thinking about it for a while. You've been getting sick more often, and there are days when you can't do the housework. Wouldn't it be easier to be a full-time housewife? That's true, but couldn't you help out more? Sean frowned again. I've been working a lot of overtime lately. It'd be better if I focus on work and you handle the housework. I didn't fully agree, but balancing work and housework was becoming physically tough. Most of all, I loved Sean's kindness and wanted to see him happy, so I decided to quit my job. But maybe that wasn't the best decision. After I became a full-time housewife, Sean changed drastically. He began to look down on me completely. If he found even a speck of dust that I missed while cleaning, he'd yell at me for hours. You're a housewife, after all. Every time he said that, I thought if I did a good job, Sean would be happy. Feeling down from waiting at home every day, I secretly took a part-time job at a nearby bakery. I enjoyed working again and thought it would lift my spirits a bit. However, Sean found out soon enough. Apparently, he heard from a neighbor. He stormed into the bakery and yelled at me in front of customers. In the end, I felt too uncomfortable to stay and had to quit the part-time job. Kelly, I told you to quit your job because you were overworking yourself. And you went and took a part-time job without telling me. It was Sean who initially suggested I quit. But this time, it was my fault for not telling him. I'm worried about you. Can't you see that? I see. Sean was worried about me. If I stayed home, I could support Sean. If I did housework perfectly, Sean would be happy. Just recently, he even bought me a cake from my favorite shop for our wedding anniversary. When I made a feast for his birthday, he praised me for my cooking skills. Those moments were my emotional support. Honestly, I sometimes thought I had more freedom before we got married. At that moment, I felt it a bit. But knowing the happy memories and Sean's kindness, I couldn't bring myself to decide on leaving him. However, Sean seemed to realize that no matter what he did, I wouldn't leave him. His attitude toward me worsened. If there was even one wrinkle in his clothes, he made me redo them. If the food lacked color, he told me to make more dishes. Around this time, Sean started frequently verbally abusing me. Can't you even do this? This is why I hate old women who can't even have kids. I had gotten used to being yelled at for housework, but I couldn't ignore these words. We discussed this when we got married. Why are you bringing it up now? We've been married for a few years now, but we don't have any children. But that was because of what Sean said. Raising kids costs money, you know? We don't know if we can provide for them without any issues, so I don't want to irresponsibly have kids. When he said that, I thought he was thinking about our family's future. So, even though I wanted children, I couldn't bring myself to say it. But it was different. Sean just didn't want me to neglect housework or spend money because of having kids. Yet, if something went wrong, he'd blame it all on me. Realizing Sean's selfish mindset, I cried all night. One day, I wasn't feeling well from the morning. I completed my chores and made lunch as usual, trying not to let Sean notice. After sending Sean off to work, I lay down to rest. I was more exhausted than I thought, both mentally and physically, and I ended up sleeping until the evening instead of just taking a short nap. Still not fully recovered, I prepared dinner and cleaned as much as I could. When Sean came home, he got angry seeing the state of the house. "Hey, why is the laundry still hanging out? And the bath isn't ready? You've been home all day, can't you even clean properly? You useless idiot." "I'm sorry. I wasn't feeling well today." I told him I'd been feeling unwell since the morning and had been resting. I apologized and promised to do the chores properly the next day. Sean looked at me with disgust and kept his distance. "Then stay away from me. I have work tomorrow too. Can you take responsibility if I get sick? That's harsh. How can you say that?" Sean didn't even ask, "Are you okay?" anymore. Ignoring my sadness, Sean started packing his things for some reason. "I'm gonna stay at a hotel. Contact me when you've finished all the housework perfectly." "That's too much. You don't have to go that far." "Shut up. And the hotel costs are coming out of your money, obviously." Ignoring my attempts to stop him, Sean really left the house. Why is Sean so cruel to me? How much more do I have to try for Sean to acknowledge me? I remembered Sean's happy face. I wanted my kind husband, who used to care about me, to return. Housework is my job. I kept telling myself it. 2 days later, I finally recovered and cleaned the house more thoroughly than usual before calling Sean. "Sean, I've finished all the cleaning. I'm better now, so there's no worry about spreading anything. Please come home." Yeah. Sean finally agreed to come back. While waiting, I cooked his favorite meal. When Sean returned from work, I greeted him. "Welcome back." He silently handed me a piece of paper. It was the receipt from the hotel he had stayed at for a few days. "Hey, isn't this a bit too much?" "Huh? It's like you kicked me out. How could I live in such a dirty house? Oh, and here's more." He handed me several more receipts, piling them on top of the hotel bill. "I'm not paying a single cent. From now on, you're paying all the utilities." They were utility bills for the house. Water, gas, electricity, everything. "What do you mean?" "You're the one using water and gas, so it's only natural you pay for it. You waste too much anyway. Everything costs too much." "That's because I do all the housework. I'm not wasting anything." I cook, heat the bath, and run the washing machine, all of it. Sean doesn't do anything. So of course, I use water and gas. Besides, I'm not wasting anything. I've been trying to save money to avoid Sean's complaints. But his unreasonable demands didn't stop. "Listen, I'm the one supporting you now. You can fetch water from the river, and don't use electricity until I get home." "That's impossible." "Just do it. If you're a housewife, manage on $200 a month." No matter how much I argued, he wouldn't listen. "Then at least let me get a part-time job. It's impossible to pay for everything with just my money." "Then you'll just slack off on the housework again, won't you? Use the savings from when you were working. You're supposed to take care of me." "Take care of you? I'm already doing all the housework. What more do you want?" "When I get home, have dinner ready right away. Meanwhile, prepare the bath and lay out my clothes. Make sure I can be comfortable in this house." "That's no different from being a maid." Sean looked down at me with a smirk. That's fitting for someone who can't even be useful to me. That's when I realized that the kind man I married was gone. No matter how much I hoped, it was useless. Sean no longer saw me as his wife. Fine. I'll keep the food budget to $200 a month. I'll save on utilities and pay everything with my money. Having lost all trust and affection for Sean, I decided to strictly follow his manage on $200 a month demand. From the next day, I completely accepted Sean's unreasonable demands. I lost the desire to argue and didn't want to have any unnecessary conversations. When Sean came home, he saw the dinner I had prepared and his eyes widened. "What is this simple meal? Do you really think you can feed your hard-working husband such a lousy dinner?" I expected him to say exactly that. Sighing inwardly at how predictable he was, I replied, "I only have $200 for the month, so the meals will be sparse. But remember, this was your idea. Just eat and deal with it. It's tough having a wife who can't cook decent meals." As he reluctantly ate, I laughed internally. I knew he didn't even understand what he was saying, he just wanted to insult me. After dinner, Sean always wanted to take a bath right away. I used to prepare the bath and lay out his clothes, but today was different. "Kelly, why isn't the bath ready?" I stopped washing the dishes and went to him. "I'll prepare it now. Heating the bath earlier would waste gas, so I waited until you were ready to get in." I emphasized that this was his idea, and he mumbled more complaints. Sean complained about something every day. But since that day, I had stopped expecting anything from Sean and started to argue back. 2 weeks passed like this. This morning, the weather was bad, and by noon, it started raining. I remembered that yesterday's news mentioned a hurricane hitting the area. Sean decided to come home early and switch to remote work before the train stopped. Sean came home in the early afternoon and said, "I'm hungry. I'll be working in my room, so make me some food." He then lounged on the sofa. I looked at the contents of the fridge and the household budget and thought about what to make for Sean. "Here you go." I placed the meal I had prepared for Sean on the table. "What the hell is this?" Sean looked incredibly shocked at what was on the table. "What do you mean? You asked me to make you food." "Don't be ridiculous. This is just a plate of sugar." Yes. I had served him a plate full of sugar. Naturally, Sean was furious. "What were you thinking? I can't eat this." "But we already used up the $200 budget. There's no more money for groceries." "That can't be true. How much did you waste?" In front of the still angry Sean, I pulled out the household budget book I had in my pocket and showed it to him. "Half of the $200 was spent on your alcohol." "What?" Sean tried to argue, but I had kept all the receipts attached to the budget book as evidence. "Anyway, if you're hungry, you'll have to make do with this until dinner." Sean bit his lip in frustration. Eventually, he pulled out his wallet, took out a $100 bill, and threw it at me. "Then take this and go buy something from the convenience store. I'll be working in my room." Sean spat out his words and went upstairs to his room. I didn't want to go out in such terrible weather, but I knew refusing would lead to more trouble. Resigned, I decided to go outside. The weather was worse than I had imagined. My umbrella broke as soon as I left the house, and I battled the heavy rain and strong wind to get to the convenience store. By the time I finished shopping and returned home, I was completely soaked. Water dripped from my hair, and when I wrung out my clothes, a small puddle formed at the entrance. I thought about changing clothes before going to Sean's room but decided against it. Still carrying my frustration, I entered the room to find papers scattered on the floor. I walked over the documents with my wet feet and handed Sean the convenience store bag. Sean opened his mouth to yell but quickly swallowed his words, glaring at me in silence. Taking a small breath, I said, "Sean, I'm sorry." I apologized loudly and deeply. "Even though you generously gave me $200 for the month, I've already spent all of it on groceries." Sean began to panic visibly but said nothing. He couldn't say anything because several of his colleagues were visible on his computer screen, indicating he was in a video conference. I knew he was in a meeting the moment I entered the room, so I exaggerated my apology. "I have nothing left but sugar to serve you. I'm a terrible housewife. I'll accept any punishment, just like last month." I yelled as loudly as I could and quickly left the room. From behind the door, I could hear Sean desperately trying to explain himself. I did a small victory pose and headed to my room to change clothes. Even after this small act of revenge, I continued to follow Sean's orders. Today, I cleaned and did laundry in the dim light, not turning on the electricity until absolutely necessary. The usually gloomy, dark room felt a bit brighter today. I knew Sean would be furious after his meeting, but I didn't care. I was about to start preparing dinner when a loud noise echoed through the house. Startled, I heard Sean's groaning. "What happened?" The sound came from the stairs. Rushing over, I found Sean at the bottom of the stairs, clutching his foot in pain. "Are you okay?" I hurried to his side. It seemed he had been looking at his phone while descending the dark stairs. Sean's phone, still on, lay beside him. "Ouch, it hurts. Call an ambulance." I couldn't just leave Sean, who was barely able to speak. I rushed back to the living room and called for an ambulance. Due to the heavy rain, the ambulance was delayed. I informed Sean, but he just kept whining in pain, crying pathetically. As it turned out, Sean had indeed broken his leg. I thought he was just exaggerating. Now hospitalized, Sean acted like a victim, completely forgetting his terrible behavior towards me. "I'm injured. You're a useless housewife anyway, so take proper care of me." I was furious but held it in and started packing his things. "I'm sorry to trouble you, Mom. Thank you for coming." "It's fine. I'm sorry for my clumsy son," Sean's mom said in an exasperated tone. I had contacted her right after Sean was hospitalized. She rushed over from the neighboring town and was now helping me pack. We didn't meet often, but she had always been kind and considerate since I first met her during our wedding preparations. "By the way, the house is very clean. There's not a speck of dust." I couldn't remember the last time I received such straightforward praise. Sean always found something to complain about, no matter how hard I tried. Seeing my silence, my mother-in-law looked worried. "Kelly, you look exhausted. Is Sean being unreasonable?" I hesitated to speak. I wanted to tell her everything, but it didn't feel right to complain behind his back. She sighed. "Sean's attitude is just like his father's. He was also a typical domineering husband." I had heard a little about Sean's father. He had passed away before Sean and I reconnected. "I tried to raise him strictly, but he ended up thinking housework was entirely my job, just like his father." "I see." At that moment, Sean's phone rang. Sean was the type to store full names in his contacts. It was an unfamiliar name, but it might be a work call or a friend. Thinking my mother-in-law might know the person, I answered the call on speaker. "Oh, Sean, you finally answered. Why didn't you come to work today?" "Excuse me, are you from my husband's workplace?" "Huh? Are you his wife?" "Yes, my name is Kelly." The caller was a woman. Judging by her tone, she might be a subordinate, but something felt off. I exchanged a glance with my mother-in-law. As soon as I introduced myself, the woman mumbled something unintelligible. "Is there something I can help you with?" By the way, is Sean there?" "My husband broke his leg yesterday and is going to be hospitalized for a while." "Hospitalized? Well, that's not good." "Excuse me?" When I asked about her cryptic remark, the woman stammered. "Well, please tell Sean to get well soon," she said quickly and hung up. "Just to be sure, you don't know this person, right, Kelly?" "No, and you've never seen this name before either, have you?" "No, I haven't." My mother-in-law nodded seriously. We were probably thinking the same thing. Would someone use such a sweet tone with their boss? And calling him Sean so familiarly was suspicious too. She said, "Well, that's not good." Feeling a bit guilty, I opened Sean's phone. The top conversation in his messaging app was with the same woman. "Sean, let's have lunch together tomorrow." "Sure, I'm looking forward to it." That was their latest exchange. The timing of the message was just before Sean got injured yesterday. My suspicion was confirmed. As I scrolled through the messages, I remembered something. "Mom," I said to my mother-in-law, "I want to expose Sean's lies. Can you help me?" With a few days' worth of clothes, some of Sean's favorite comics, and some get-well gifts, we headed to the hospital. "You're late! What took you so long?" Sean yelled as soon as he saw me, but he was shocked when he saw his mom standing next to me. "Why is Mom here?" "Kelly told me." "And what's with that attitude?" "Kelly's been busy taking care of you." "But Kelly's a housewife." "That's why she's busy. Don't act high and mighty when you've never done housework yourself." My mother-in-law firmly rebuked Sean. But Sean looked even more disgruntled. "Housework is Kelly's job. She's home all day, so she should have plenty of time." "You were just like your father in that regard," she muttered under her breath, though Sean didn't hear her. "Here, this is for you." I handed Sean some madeleines I bought at a bakery on the way. "By the way, you got a call on your phone earlier. It seemed to be from a junior colleague." When I mentioned the woman's name, Sean froze, clearly flustered. Yeah, it must be about the project I'm working on. I'll call back later." My mother-in-law and I exchanged glances without Sean noticing. "These look delicious. Speaking of which, the madeleines you brought back as a souvenir from your trip were also delicious." "Madeleines? Did I give you those?" Sean's expression changed at our conversation. "Hey Sean, when did you buy those madeleines?" "Oh, sorry Mom. That was from a trip with my boss." "Oh, really? In that case, I'd like to thank your boss personally." My mother-in-law took Sean's phone out of the bag. "No, don't. You don't need to do that." "What are you talking about? I've always taught you to say thank you properly." "No, really. Stop." Sean was getting more and more flustered. I quickly pressed him. "Sean, you're acting strange. Why are you so nervous?" Well." Unable to answer, I was sure he was hiding something. My mother-in-law asked Sean with a stern look. "Who did you really go on that trip with?" Asked in a low voice, Sean turned pale. This happened after the call with the woman ended. I asked my mother-in-law about something that had been bothering me. "Mom, do you remember saying over the phone that the madeleines we bought were delicious?" "Huh? Yes. You two went on a trip, right? Sean said he forgot to give them to me and brought them over. Do you remember where they were from?" Let me think. My mother-in-law mentioned a place I had never been to. When I told her this, she looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "We did go on a trip, but it was to a different place." "Then those madeleines." "Sean went on a business trip a week before our trip to the place you mentioned." "Sean, care to explain?" "Spill it." Cornered by both my mother-in-law and me, Sean finally confessed everything. The woman was his subordinate. And, as I suspected, he had been cheating on me for some time. The affair started right after I quit my part-time job. Since then, Sean had started calling me old hag. He started having an affair with a younger woman. It made sense now. "Is this woman your mistress?" I opened Sean's messaging app. There were messages between Sean and the woman. "I'm looking forward to the trip. But what about your wife?" I told her it's a business trip, so it's fine. She believes everything I say. The messages were clear evidence. Sean had lied about the business trip and went on a vacation with his mistress. And foolishly, he gave his mother souvenirs with the name of the affair's destination, pretending they were from our trip. "Sean, what have you done?" My mother-in-law was furious upon learning about Sean's lies. I had never seen her so angry. Sean was equally shocked, unable to hide his fear of his mother's wrath. "Kelly quit her job to support you. And you cheated on her?" "But I had no choice," Sean yelled back. She can't do housework properly, she talks back, and she's an old hag who can't have kids. Of course, I'd prefer a young, cute girl. His pathetic attempt to blame me didn't make me sad anymore. I was completely over him. Mom, it's okay. But Kelly. It's okay. I'm divorcing Sean. Sean was stunned and then furious. What are you talking about? You can't do that. You have no right to act high and mighty after cheating on me. What? I've tried my best. Even when I quit the job I loved, even when you yelled at me, I didn't divorce you because I couldn't forget how much I loved you. I wished Sean felt the same way I did. I thought so. But you always looked down on me. Even when we were both working, you forced all the housework on me and wouldn't let me spend my own money freely. Don't say that in front of Mom. Sean tried to stop me, but I ignored him. My mother-in-law's face was growing more and more furious. You made me quit my job, made me pay all the household expenses, and then demanded I manage on $200 a month for groceries? That's impossible. Kelly, is all this true? Yes, here's the proof in the budget book. My mother-in-law looked through it, shocked. Almost half of it was spent on your alcohol, disappearing in less than 2 weeks. And then he gets angry because there's not enough money for more food. This is unbelievable. And one more thing. I didn't hold back. You called me an old hag who can't have kids, but it was you who said we shouldn't have children because of financial worries, wasn't it? What? Sean told me right after you got married that you didn't want kids because you were uncomfortable with them. Sean was visibly trembling under his mom's sharp gaze. That's not true. Sean was the one who said it. I thought he was being responsible about our future, but he was just stingy and selfish. My mother-in-law grabbed Sean by the collar, not caring about his injury. Do you realize how ridiculous you sound? Mom, calm down. Shut up. I said you were just like your father, but let me correct that. Your father was a strict husband, but he never made me suffer financially. Sean stood there with his mouth agape. Making your wife handle all the housework and financial burdens makes you worse than your father. Pathetic. Sean was now completely cowering, repeatedly apologizing. His mom's wrath continued until a nurse, alerted by other patients, arrived. Immediately afterward, I handed Sean divorce papers. He desperately pleaded to wait until he was discharged from the hospital. Sean was desperate, promising he'd never cheat again and that I could live freely. Seeing him cling to me so miserably, his mom scolded him once more. Sean tearfully signed the divorce papers. I also demanded compensation from both Sean and his mistress for the affair. Sean ended up with a significant debt, including the house repairs from his fall and his hospital bills. He never believed in insurance, thinking it was a waste, and now it backfired. After his discharge, Sean felt very isolated at work. Apparently, his boss, known for being a devoted husband, was part of the conference call on the day of the hurricane. The boss knew I had gone out in the storm to buy Sean's dinner and about the $200 grocery budget, so he confronted Sean. Unable to hide, Sean told a sanitized version of the story, omitting the affair. His boss was furious. After our divorce, the boss only talked to Sean about work and nothing else. Sean's mistress was 10 years younger than us. She had a history of seducing married or committed men, and Sean was just one of them. But now, faced with a hefty compensation demand, she was furious. Why should I pay? I never said I'd break up with you. You should pay this. When Sean refused, she started spreading rumors about him at work. She claimed our divorce was due to Sean's violence and that he had multiple affairs. In retaliation, Sean spread rumors about her too. Eventually, the truth about Sean's arrogant attitude and their affair spread. Both became outcasts at work but couldn't quit because they needed the money to pay the compensation. I heard all this from Sean's mom. I'm so sorry for all the pain you went through, Kelly. There's no need for you to apologize. I'm grateful you stood by me during the divorce. I'm glad you feel that way. We still meet occasionally for tea even after the divorce. By the way, how is Sean doing? She has been visiting Sean's place, rigorously teaching him how to manage household chores now that he's single again. At work, Sean is whispered about by his colleagues, and at home, he struggles with chores. Even though he complains about having no time to rest, no one sympathizes with him. Despite the divorce, he was once my husband. So I couldn't help but feel a bit concerned. His mom was candid about it. He's hopeless. He's never done housework before or after the marriage. He can't even cook anything. That must be tough. Mom couldn't stop complaining about Sean. Yet she hadn't abandoned him, showing just how kind she was. By the way, how's work going for you, Kelly? It's going well. I enjoy it every day. I was able to return to my old job. I always loved working, and my colleagues welcomed me back warmly. Now, I live alone in a condo I bought with the alimony. I cook, clean, and shop at my own pace. That freedom is incredibly satisfying. My favorite recent treat is eating sweets after work. A little reward for a day's hard work brings me unmatched happiness.